Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and happy Monday. I hope you and your family had a great Thanksgiving. We did. It was like the real Thanksgiving, but it felt like the fake Thanksgiving because we already had our Fakesgiving with our extended family. And so it was super easy. We actually went out to this lovely restaurant and somebody else cooked, which, you know, for my family, that's a gift to us all. Caught a little bit of a cold, but I'm on the mend. And now we are back with a packed show. I'm so excited. It's December. For those of you who are listening, we have in the red studio now our Christmas trees, our white, they're green Christmas trees with fake snow all over them and little white blinky lights. It makes me so happy. We have our Christmas decorations up already. I wonder if you do too. Doesn't it just improve your mood? Here in Connecticut tomorrow, we're supposed to get some snow. Oh, I miss snow. At heart, I'm just a Syracuse girl. That's where I lived the first 10 years of my life. I miss snow and sledding. I love Christmas. I know you do too. So let's take a moment on this December 1st. You only get some 80 to 90 to 100 of them if you're lucky in your life. And enjoy the most wonderful time of the year. And no, it is not too early to play the Christmas carols. Even my boys had to admit I'm allowed to play them now. Okay, just before we went to break, a group of Democrats dubbed the Seditious Six by the Trump administration released a video urging military members to disobey orders they think are illegal. It came out of nowhere. No one, even the left-wing press, started, asking questions about this. No one knew what the hell are the orders that they're talking about, and they didn't know. These lawmakers got embarrassed repeatedly, thinking that the media would just go along with this. Like, of course, it's Trump, so he's issued illegal orders. They didn't. And it got to the point where even Caroline Leavitt complimented the mainstream media for asking questions of these Democrat lawmakers who then looked like morons, unable to name the alleged illegal order. So that's basically how it went down. And then, of course, since their friends had been embarrassed, meaning the Democrats, the media went to work trying to find some new reporting that actually would suggest there had been an illegal order. And lo and behold, they came up with it. I mean, it's just like, I'm sorry, but we would be remiss if we didn't point out. Can you imagine the Washington Post doing this in order to actually run cover for a Republican administration as opposed to expose one? Can you imagine if they had done something like this next level reporting to get to the bottom of how many orders have been issued and where and how, and which one may have crossed a line when Joe Biden was the president? It's just so on the nose. We'll get into what they've come up with. Plus, the spin continues after the tragic shooting in D.C. of 2 National Guard members by an Afghani national last week. Joining me now to discuss it all, Mark Halperin. He is the host of Next Up with Mark Halperin on the MK Media Podcast Network. Go and subscribe right now. It's a great, great show. I love listening to Mark's opening talking points. He keeps me centered and up to date on the latest inside the Beltway. So go ahead and subscribe right now wherever you get your audio podcasts and on YouTube at Next Up Halperin, HALPERIN.com.
Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X.
Believe it or not, Christmas is sneaking up fast. Can you believe it? And let's be honest, between shopping, travel, and endless to-do lists, it can be chaos every year. But we don't have to just survive it. We can reclaim the peace and purpose Christmas was meant to bring. Somewhere along the way, Advent became a marathon of gifts, dinners, and decorations. But what's the point if we're left exhausted and distracted? Let me tell you about Hallow. Their Advent prayer challenge, Pray 25, Be Still, features reflections from Chris Pratt, Gwen Stefani, and more. It's a call to pause, breathe, and remember the real story of Christmas. A young woman's life upended, a man protecting his family, and a corrupt ruler trying to destroy it all. And yet, they found peace. This is not about a Hallmark moment. It's about finding stillness and divine peace in a broken world. Try Hallow free for 3 months at hallow.com/Megyn. Mark, welcome back.
Good to be here, and I broke the rules and started listening to the Christmas music on Tuesday, so sue me.
Yes. Now, let me ask you a question about that. Do you listen to only Christmas music, like when you're in your car, or do you go back and forth, for the next 3 weeks?
No, when I'm in the car, it's the Sirius XM holiday channels. And, yes. I like Sinatra, the Carpenters. I like pretty much any artist I've ever liked. I just love spinning up the Christmas stuff. And then, if I'm being let down, I just switch to the phone and program myself.
Yes, same. I love SiriusXM has made channel 4 now,
Yep.
the Holly channel. They've got the 15 is now the Fallon Christmas. That's a new one. Those are good ones that I haven't always heard. And then I love traditional Christmas, which I think is 71.
Yep.
Sinatra's 70, which also is a good channel, by the way.
Great channel. Those are the three I listened to. We were just away for Thanksgiving, and so I had the car, and I just locked in on those three. I saved all three channels, and they're spectacular.
Yes, it's like it gets you right in the mood. And soon we'll be busting out the Christmas specials. Do you unleash those in a certain way? I'm curious.
I'm a linear TV guy when it comes to Christmas specials. I like to watch them as they're offered up by the majors. So.
Oh, old school. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a favorite?
I love Rudolph, and I love the Charlie Brown one. Those are my two favorites.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I love Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And the Burgermeister, Meister Burger. That's a great one. Except we fast forward through the scene where Jessica sings. It's a bad one.
I agree. It's a little warbly. I love claymation, and I tried to explain to my son, when I was a kid, claymation was the equivalent of 4D graphics. But there's something about the claymation. I just find any claymation that's got Santa whiskers, I just love.
Yes, it's good stuff. And I'll give you one more before we move on to the news, which is I grew up watching this. I'm going to be honest, it's not well made. You see that when you're an adult in a way that you don't when you're a kid. But I still love it. And it's called The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. It's so good. You can find it on... At one point, you couldn't find it anywhere before we had apps all over our TVs. And I had to order it from some remote website in Italy. I don't know. I got it. Anyway, it's so cute. It's about this guy named Mr. Prune who lives to ruin Christmas. And he's harassing Santa and Mrs. Claus at the North Pole. And Santa has to go get a job down in Everyman Town. He takes one at a toy store. Mr. Prune won't let up. He's a major antagonist, this guy. It's just such a fun one. And, of course, for me, brings back...
I don't know that one, but I like the Dickensian name of Mr. Prune. We just watched, I'd never seen it, The Dog Who Saved Christmas. You ever seen that?
No.
It's hokey, but it's really good.
Recommend. Okay. Thank you for that, sir. And I do need to mention one other thing. I mention it every year, but my favorite Christmas special of all time is Christmas in Connecticut, which is from 1947. Barbara Stanwyck. Hello, black and white. They have a sleigh that they ride. That's me hitting the horses with the straps. Through the Connecticut countryside, the snow. It's a very weird and inappropriate love story that somehow you root for anyway. And just the whole setting of it makes me feel like it's Christmas.
I love that. I'll tell you, I know we said we both keep saying one more, but I have to do one more, which is the Bing Crosby, David Bowie, Little Drummer Boy. Do you know that?
Yes.
That's magical.
That's a great one.
Magical. I watched that 10
truly
times,
is one of the
10 times
greatest of all time.
It's incredible.
Now that is an appropriate use of the term magical. This morning on AM Update, which you sometimes host on, we talked about the Cory Booker engagement, and Cory Booker used the term magical to describe, I think, their date or their second date. Then when he proposed, he had Mariah Carey playing Mark. He took her out on their first date to Broadway to see a female empowerment play, Suffragette, the Suffs. I've got questions, Mark Halperin. What's happening with Cory Booker?
Well, first of all, they gave the exclusive pictures and TikTok and backstory to the New York Times, but it read like People magazine. It was just like this classic. There we're seeing, those of you watching on YouTube, you can see. And the whole thing that you just outlined, and you hit most of the highlights, I felt was written by ChatGPT. It composed the TikTok of Cory Booker's whirlwind romance with this young lady.
Yes.
Now they made her Jewish in the real version, which was a bit of a surprise.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know.
Did not know that.
They had a split wedding. They got married at City Hall, and then they had a show wedding that was half Jewish and half whatever it is he is.
Half Jewish, half gay.
Yeah. There you go. I mean,
that's what everybody's thinking.
Everyone I know who knows him is surprised, but not surprised. And he has gone to New Hampshire in the last couple of months, and he is kind of an under-discussed person of ambition. You remember James Carville's famous line about running for president when somebody says, well, that person ran, or they really run again. And James said, running for president's like having sex. You don't just do it once and then say, I did it. I'm done. Don't need to do it again. So
I didn't hear it. I've never heard that. That's very
now, in this case, as you said, some people are raising the question of what kind of sex are we actually talking about? But
because I heard on his way to New Hampshire, he swung by Chelsea in Manhattan and also Provincetown, Massachusetts. It's just it's unconfirmed report, allegedly.
Good places to raise money. Look, people have talked about his personal life forever. You don't need to have the world's most sensitive gaydar to have a point of view here. But he's now, like Tim Scott, he's legally wed, and I wish the young couple all happiness.
Me too. However short-lived it may be. It may take him right through to 2028 and the primary season and not beyond, but I hope I'm wrong, and I'm just a cynical mofo, and I've misread the entire situation. Though I do view Mariah Carey as a blaring red siren warning sign for any woman dating a man. That no man should select that song.
Wasn't Cher or Mariah Carey? I mean, Cher or Liza Minnelli. So. Yeah,
true. Equally damning. You raise a good point. It's the trifecta. In any event, good luck to them. They're going to need it. Okay, back here, we've got the Democrats have stumbled upon their alleged illegal order, and they're thrilled. They're so excited. What they're saying is that on one of those Venezuelan drug boat strikes, we struck the boat, that there were 2 survivors, drug dealers, driving the boat or on the boat, who were then clinging to the remnants of the boat, and that on Pete Hegseth's order, they then dropped a second bomb to take out the 2 survivors, and then 2 more bombs to sink the boat, because I guess we want no remnants of the boat whatsoever. And Trump was asked about this on Air Force One, and Trump denied that Pete had done it. He actually said, Pete told me that he hasn't done it, that he did not agree to that. And now we've had 2 inquiries opened in Republican-controlled bodies of Congress, the House and the Senate. So the Republicans, or at least making a show of seeming interested in whether this happened, because many military experts have said they don't see how this could be legal. Like that you're not allowed, they say, and this is still under investigation about what happened, but if what I just said is true, and that's an if, that it would be clearly illegal because you're not allowed to kill people who survive an initial strike and who are, even if they're enemy combatants, kind of hanging on, or in this case, possibly literally hanging on for dear life. Your thoughts on it?
Well, I contain multitudes on this. First of all, I'm a big fan of stopping the invasion of drugs into the United States. And I think our children and our grandchildren are going to be so confused when they read in the history books that we had presidents who did nothing about it and just sat back and let people send drugs into the country that killed people and hurt productivity and just all the scourge of things that drugs do. So I'm a big fan of anything that addresses that, number one. Number two, I think President Trump has proven that if you use force aggressively and you use it in a way that minimizes or doesn't cause any loss of American life, that it can be a great deterrent. We saw that, at least potentially with Iran. We've seen it in other cases, and we're seeing it here. So people who say, well, they're not interdicting all the drugs, they're just getting a few boats. No, they're sending a message to people whose families and individuals are going to be more reluctant to go to the high seas with drugs destined for the United States or elsewhere. So I don't want to be misunderstood. I think those two things are good. But I'm also old-fashioned about two things, and I think they're really fundamental to what America's about. Number one, I don't think the President of the United States should kill people indiscriminately, or our forces should kill people indiscriminately in violation of law and American tradition. And that may be what's happened here in this particular case, but it's clearly the case in general. And I think there's been insufficient debate about it and insufficient scrutiny about it. And number two, super old-fashioned and kind of diluted, I think Congress is a co-equal branch, and in some cases a superior branch, when it comes to the declaration of war. And I think no American, whatever you call your politics, no American should be complacent about presidents. All the Cold War presidents have done this, using their power and disregarding Congress's role in declaring war. And I think that's what's happened here too. And I think that's, at a minimum, should be examined.
Well, that touches on an interesting dynamic that's popping up more and more in the press about whether there's some group of Republicans that are dejected and demoralized on Capitol Hill right now, Mark, because they feel like a rubber stamp to Trump. They feel like they can't challenge him or they're going to get primaried and chased out of Congress, MTG style. And so they do feel like they've ceded their constitutional authority because they're all so afraid of the 800-pound gorilla. Now, is that an actual thing right now, or is that just a leftist media fever dream?
No, it's an actual thing. It's not based on, talking to Democrats or talking to Don Bacon or Tom Massey. They're Trump loyalists who are unhappy. Now, some of them are unhappy because of principle. And you don't see, as we did over the weekend, normally in the Trump era, you don't see the Republican chairs of the applicable committees in the House and Senate saying this needs to be investigated and saying it in a bipartisan way with the Democratic ranking members. And they're doing that because they are troubled by this on principle. Most of the unhappiness amongst Republicans, again, not a Democratic or media creation, is concern about the midterms. Concern that they're going to lose the House majority because of the economy and a feeling that the White House is insufficiently moving to address what voters are concerned about, particularly how much things cost. So those are two different areas of unhappiness, one principle, one pure politics. And again, I think the political one is probably, if you could quantify unhappiness, probably a greater source right now amongst Republicans.
Right, because we were talking about this a little on the tour, that it's in a way it's so much more fun to be in the opposition, and just like lay criticisms on the people in power. But then when your team is in power and there's infighting and there's all sorts of articles every day about how terrible they are, I know it's from mostly the mainstream, which hates Trump and hates everybody in the Trump administration, but it's aggravating and it's irritating. And it can be kind of a downer. And I feel like the Republican Party is going through that right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of three main areas, right? One is about dealing with the economy, this word that the president doesn't much like, affordability. But these are tough problems. The cost of housing, the cost of food, the cost of energy. These are tough issues for any president to deal with. So that's one source of anxiety and infighting. Two is there's some cabinet members like Pete Hegseth, like Kash Patel, head of the FBI, and like Kristi Noem, who have now had to face multiple stories that are super negative about their stewardships that, again, are not from the deep state. They're not from Democrats. They're some cases published in the legacy media, but not always. So today, for instance, New York Post has a story about Kash Patel by Miranda Devine.
I saw it. We should talk about it. It's devastating
piece. And again, you got to consider the source. Miranda's a great reporter and writer and columnist. She's not writing a negative story based on the deep state sources. She's just not.
That's what concerns me. She's so good.
So that's number two is you've got some cabinet members. And then the president's poll numbers just aren't good. And again, that's not the liberal media. It's not fake polls. Every poll, including private Republican polls, show it's a snapshot of where we are. It doesn't mean they'll be bad next year. It doesn't mean he can't turn things around. But his poll numbers are really bad right now. And that just always causes tension.
The one that just hit is from Gallup, which is, the mother of all polls. Yeah. Forgive me, I'm having a cough drop. But that has approval rating down to 36, a new second-term low. Keep going.
Yeah, and amongst independents, I think in that poll it's 25. And again, this is not liberal. It's not anti-Trump. If his numbers are that bad at the midterms, they'll lose the House. They might lose the Senate. So that just causes anxiety. And this White House has done a very good job of not just making Republicans in Congress afraid of them, although they're good at that, but making them feel they're being communicated with. And right now, they're claiming they don't feel that way. The White House takes issue with that and says they're communicating all the time. And it's just an excuse to rail against the White House. But this is not a great time right now for the president's political team. But there's an interval here to improve things. But at the moment, there are these sources of tension, and when you see somebody like Miranda Devine write a piece like that about Kash Patel, who's the ultra MAGA loyalist, it just makes everybody think, like a horror movie, like the villain or the enemy or whatever you want to describe it. They're in the house. They're not outside the house. They're in the house.
Well, the FBI report she references confused me.
Me too.
Because this is what her headline is, opinion, damning report labels FBI rudderless ship under Kash Patel, with him and Dan Bongino more concerned with building personal resumes, which is a quote. And then she bases her report on, it's called a 115 report, quote, source reporting and analysis of the FBI under the leadership of FBI Director Kash Patel, a pulse check for the first 6 months. 4, U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary and Chairman Chuck Grassley, and U.S. House Committee on the Judiciary and Chairman Jim Jordan, by the National Alliance of Retired and Active Duty FBI Special Agents and Analysts. So I remain unclear on whether this was requested by the Senate Committee, whether this is just a bunch of ex-FBI people who are disgruntled and predictably don't like Dan and Kash, or what this is. Sounds so official. I don't understand whether it is, but what we do know is it's very nasty. It really goes after Kash. They have a passing shot at Dan Bongino, trying to diminish him, but mostly it's focusing on Kash Patel. And the thing that they're really zeroing in on is what they say is like a vanity, I guess, of his. A vanity. That they talk about how when he flew out to the Charlie Kirk staging, like the FBI staging in the wake of it, he was insistent on getting an FBI jacket brought to him on board the plane before he disembarked, and that he apparently did not have his own, quoting here, FBI raid jacket with him. He refused to step from the plane without wearing one. That FBI special agents at the Salt Lake City field office busy working on the Kirk case, quote, had to stop and ask around to find an FBI raid jacket, a medium-sized one that would fit. When a jacket belonging to a female agent was delivered to Patel on the plane, he complained that, quote, 2 areas on the upper sleeves did not have Velcro patches attached. And then he would not leave the plane, quote, until he had 2 patches to cover those areas, quote, so members of an FBI SWAT team took patches off of their uniforms and ran those patches over to Patel at the airport. The patches were then attached to the loaner FBI raid jacket, and Patel disembarked from the plane. The director was not happy with the way the investigation was going. He had an expletive-filled tirade, whatever. All that's kind of ridiculous. Of course, people yell in these tense times. But the jacket story, if true, it's not great.
No. Look, I had the same reaction you did, too. Like, I'm reading this story. I've read my share of stories about stuff like this. I don't remember this kind of quasi-official, anonymous report that's handed over like that. I just don't remember anything quite like that. Not just with the FBI. I don't remember anything like that. They wrote like a serious, rigorous report with all these details, but it's not official, but it's kind of official. And then again, the question of Miranda. She's the only one, as far as I know, who's reported this so far. She's not anti-Trump. She doesn't write for an anti-Trump publication. And yet, with a few, to be sure, paragraphs of positive things, it's a very negative story. It's a very negative report. So you got to ask yourself, how did this thing get done? And how did it end up with Miranda? And how did Miranda decide to write it up? These are not the only stories like this about Kash Patel. There's other stories, but most of them have circulated in places like the Washington Post, the New York Times. So it's a bit of a mystery. But you're seeing the same things with Pete Hegseth, and to some extent with Kristi Noem, which is again, it's not liberal media. It's people who love the president, who care about the president, who are using different outlets, in this case the New York Post, to put out there's problems. It's hard to escape the conclusion that the people are motivated by a desire to get the president to make a change in personnel, and he's not done that yet, and it's not clear if these will have an impact.
You know what though? It's always. Today we had a decision from the Third Circuit Court of Appeals before we came on the air, saying that Alina Habak cannot be the acting U.S. attorney for a district in New Jersey, and this is separate from the Tish James and James Comey challenge, which is still making its way up to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And we'll see whether that court affirms the lower court decision that she, too, was, that the prosecutor there was also not appointed correctly. That's Lindsay Halligan. So this is a separate thing. It's Alina Habba. She was Trump's personal lawyer, and he made her acting U.S. attorney within this district in the Northeast that answers to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Third Circuit Court of Appeals came down unanimously, 3-judge panel, saying they don't have the power to appoint her. She's got to go. She was not properly appointed. She's not the proper U.S. attorney. This is not a great decision for Trump. It's not a great decision to the extent it gets considered by the Fourth Circuit. That's deciding something similar, though not identical, with Lindsay Halligan. But the first thing I did when I got it, Mark, was to look at who are the judges, who was appointed, who were they appointed by. And in today's day and age, what you need to see is not just a Republican president. You need to see Trump, that it was a Trump appointee, if Trump has any fighting chance. If you see George W. Bush appointee, George H.W. Bush appointee, Reagan, you're not going to see it. You might as well see it be a Barack Obama judge. It's almost that bad. They all hate Trump. And that court was 2 W appointees and an Obama appointee. So not surprisingly, we knew how it was going to go. And that's exactly how it went. And that's kind of what I think when I see a lot of the Republicans leaking on Trump. Because clearly this came from somebody who's more, I think, right-wing aligned. They went to Miranda. I could be wrong, but it's not just Miranda. I see some of these reporting in other right-wing papers. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the Bush-era people who, just because they're part of the Trump administration in some way, shape, or form, like they're currently at the FBI, does not mean that they're pro-Trump. And if you were there, even if you're a Republican, but you're a more George W. Bush Republican, you might go to the Post or the Wall Street Journal in particular and leak something very damaging to Trump, so it will look like it's, right-on-right violence. It'll look more credible to the right wing, that is. But you really hate him just as much as the left hates him. And what you almost never see is Democrats doing this to Democrats. I'm like, you're telling me there weren't terrible stories to leak about Pete Buttigieg? Bull, or Merrick Garland for that matter, or Chris Wray even. There were. It just doesn't happen.
Well, it does happen with Kamala Harris. So there's at least one exception there. There were stories like that about her and her staff. I think that it's a sad thing, but it's true. Judges are result oriented, and I used to say it all the time after Bush v. Gore, and lawyers and various political lawyers would call me and say, no, judges are fair, justices are fair, they follow the law. No, they're almost all result oriented, and I think that's just horrible. They should be ruling based on the law, and, no matter who nominated them for the court. In this case, you're absolutely right that it's a cheat for a reporter to say Republicans are saying if they're Bush Republicans, because the Bushes and the Bush, Team Bush are not fans of Donald Trump, anymore, as you said, than the Team Obama is. But I'll say again, there are Republicans now who are unhappy with Kash Patel, who are Trump Republicans. There are Trump Republicans who are unhappy with Donald Trump right now. Some about the economy, some about Epstein. So you see that reflected not just at the elite level, which is I'm talking about, but you see that in the Gallup poll, but also in other even Republican polls. Republicans, for various reasons, are unhappy, even Trump Republicans, with the president right now. And his first order of business is to turn that around, not just overall, but on issues. Republicans need to be confident about the economy and his policies. They need to be confident about Epstein and his view there, et cetera. So he no doubt has problems with Bush Republicans and Reagan Republicans, but he's got some problems with Trump Republicans too now. And I know that because I talked to them directly.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a year to go before the midterms, so it's reversible, but it requires some honesty right now about what exactly are the problems and are they fixable, like the economy, like a better message and actual better policy on healthcare, like not running around saying we need all these Chinese immigrants here and in our universities, and that we need H-1B visas to abound because our workers can't do it, like that interview with Laura Ingraham. That's the kind of stuff that etches away at the base. They do not want to hear that stuff at all, even though the more Chamber of Commerce Republicans do like it, and that's why he says it. Okay, let's keep going, though, on this story about the alleged illegal strike. The left is now very concerned about a president or his Department of War head ordering an illegal death, an illegal killing of someone deemed an enemy combatant. Except they didn't much seem to mind during the Obama era. I was on all the time talking about these strikes that Obama was doing with the drones. I remember O'Reilly and I having many debates about this. And hold on, we've got some with Obama bragging about how good he was at killing people. And, oh, he told you that in your book, too. Yeah. Hold on a second. Where is that soundbite, Debbie? I know that one's not on tape, but the Obama drone strike is. This is where he was, Shot 7 is where he was joking about how good he was with the Predator drones at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's a joke, but it's based on reality because he really was taking out not just alleged terrorists, but Americans who had no due process with his drones. Here's the joke, and then we'll get to the bigger news you made with him in your book.
The Jonas brothers are here. They're out there somewhere. Sasha and Malia are huge fans, but boys don't get any ideas. I have 2 words for you: Predator drones. You will never see it coming.
Okay, so they're perfectly willing to yuck it up. I didn't see like a 6 senator video saying, oh, disobey illegal orders in case you get one to take out the Jonas brothers. But with you, Mark, he took that joke and made a very serious comment that showed his real feelings about his use of those drones. And what did he say?
Well, he didn't say it directly to me. He said we reported that he said it to his aides. He said, I guess I'm pretty good at killing people. I think that's the quote in Double Down, the sequel to Game Change. And as you said, he killed an American, at least one American. That's a big difference, right? For the President of the United States, do we owe the same level of due process to people who aren't Americans who the president says we're at war at? I don't think so. But for an American to get no due process and have his president kill him, that's quite something. Now, again, it might have been justified by some moral, situational ethics thing. But as you said, where was the outrage then by the press? I was outraged. I was talking quite a bit about it. But where was the outrage from the media and from Democrats and Republicans who are principled? Like, again, there might be a justification for it, but in this country with our traditions, this should be discussed and debated, and the president should have to justify it rather than just saying, I control the weapons, and now with the drones, even easier. I control these things, and so I'm going to kill whoever I think should be killed. That's just not our tradition. There might be justification for it, and I'm not saying I don't share the goals, but it should be debated and discussed and scrutinized, and there should be disclosure about it. And I would say nothing could be more MAGA than saying we can't have a president who's unfettered in their ability to use our military to do whatever he wants. That's just not the way America is.
Mm-hmm. He said to you, or they quoted in your book, Double Down, 2012, turns out I'm really good at killing people. Yeah. Didn't know that was going to be a strong suit of mine. Yeah. I mean, wow. It was a 16-year-old. He was an American citizen, killed by a U.S. drone strike in Yemen. He was the son of terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki, and the justification was, wrong place, wrong time. Yeah. Like, too bad. Sorry, not sorry. And look, the problem they have in the Hegseth situation is reportedly, and again, this is a big asterisk because this is Washington Post reporting, that allegedly after this incident on September 2nd, they then changed the policy, the approach to not, quote, double tap if there were survivors on the boats, from the boats now swimming in the water after their boat was blown to smithereens. Yeah. So it would suggest an acknowledgement that having taken out those two on September 2nd was not ideal. I don't know if it's an acknowledgement it was illegal, but it certainly seems to have been a change in policy. And in the law, that's exactly the kind of thing you use against somebody, the change in policy or the change in behavior. Having said all that, Mark, these guys are in no danger whatsoever. If some overzealous, Senate panel leads to a recommendation for charges, the DOJ somehow finds, I don't know, some weird independent streak and decides to indict these guys, or whoever it would be, it might be a military prosecution, President Trump is going to pardon them. These guys have nothing to worry about for this strike.
Well, they don't have anything to worry about, I agree with you, from the point of view of a Justice Department indictment. And I may be wrong about this, but I don't know that the president can pardon people in the court of military justice. And certainly it could impact their careers.
I think he can.
Really? I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example of that.
I think so. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I was reading, among others, Andy McCarthy this morning.
Yeah.
He was very tough on the president
Very tough.
here, very tough on Hegseth, and not at all on his side. But I think he did acknowledge up front that a pardon would be likely and could render it moot.
You know, if you read the Washington Post story carefully, as you did, people should know the Washington Post story leaves room for the notion that the order to kill the last two gentlemen, allegedly, was not a direct order from Hegseth. That Hegseth's order was make sure, everybody gets killed. But it's possible, if you read the Post story literally, that it was the commander who said, do the second tap, rather than Hegseth himself.
Well, I mean, I guess that won't necessarily affect anything other than the truth of Hegseth's denial as espoused by Trump on Air Force One, that Hegseth told me he did not order that.
Right.
So, I mean, that may get Hegseth off the hook. In any event, it's like, to me, it's kind of annoying to even debate it. I do think our soldiers and, all armed forces should not commit war crimes. Mm-hmm. Definitely on team don't commit a war crime. But I also feel like I object to even the scrutiny of this event, because it's all manufactured. It's only being done to retroactively justify this, seditious six and that's what Hegseth is calling them, and their video, which was based on nothing. They're just now digging. It's a fishing expedition. And it does feel a little, Stalin's right-hand man-esque, like, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. That's how it feels to me. So I'm really not that into it, nor do I really care that we're killing the drug boat guys trying to kill my kids and yours right now by bringing their fentanyl to the United States to try to get our kids when they go to college with, some drug in some moment of weakness where they think they're taking a Xanax, like what happened to poor Eric Bolling's child, and instead it's laced with fentanyl. So I really do kind of not only want to see them killed in the water, whether they're on the boat or in the water, but I'd really like to see them suffer. I would like Trump and Hegseth to make it last a long time so that they lose a limb and bleed out a little. Like, I'm really having a difficult time ginning up sympathy for these guys who 10 seconds earlier almost got taken out by the initial bomb, but because they managed to get ejected, a little too soon, had to be taken out in the water. I realize legally it may make a difference, but truly, Mark, this is a tough case to really gin up the sympathies of the American people.
Yeah, like I said, I shared the premise that you just raised, because I think it's important that we do something to keep our porous border from being flooded with drugs that are killing our people. So if this is in service of that, I think it's something that should be considered. I just think there needs to be more debate, because I just don't think it's good for the United States to be violating international law, if that's what happened here, or taking human life under conditions that aren't vetted. Now, I would say every one of these actions has a legal team. And my hope would be that the legal team is signing off on this stuff. So while outside...
That's what Hegseth is saying.
So while outside lawyers may say this is a clear violation, let's find out. And, again, declassification without revealing sources and methods and operational details. Let's find out what the legal justification was for it. Because if it can't be justified legally, then it's hard to defend it, even if the mission and the goals are admirable and necessary. But presumably these were signed off on by lawyers. So let's see what they said. Let's see how they justified it. That hasn't been forthcoming. And I do think that would quiet the complaints of at least some who are fair-minded about this.
Yes, and Hegseth says they did have sign-off from lawyers at the top of the DOJ and the military system on these strikes, though his memo's a little ambiguous on, what about the question of the two swimming in the water? In any event, I'm not going to lie, I'm glad they're dead. Let's keep going, because There's a new ad out today. This whole thing got started as a result of this so-called seditious six. Again, that's a Hegseth term for these lawmakers. Now, today, there's a new ad that's just been put out by the Women's March, which is such a weird thing to still have around as like an organization dropping ads. And this one is trying to do the same thing. And the way those six tried to get between the commander-in-chief and his armed military, this one seems to try to get between the commander-in-chief and his armed ICE officers. Here it is. Watch this.
You will be caught. You will be removed. And you will never return.
Christina on the TV. Someone comes in with handcuffs. A man. He looks forlorn.
Hey, Daddy, how's your day?
He's an ICE officer. What will you say, read the captions, when she asks about your day? Now, these dramatic scenes of ICE taken out of context.
A mask can't hide you from your neighbors, your children, and God. They'll know. You can walk away before the shame follows you home.
Daddy, how's your day?
You can walk away. You can walk away as an ICE officer while not and still receive your paycheck, because these are just cops who are charged with making arrests, Mark, based on warrants that are given to them through a duly enacted process. That's not what the left will tell you. They think it's all like dragging kids out of their homes and making little girls cry. That's what the Women's March wants you to believe. But they also thought that, equal rights meant wearing a pink P-word hat and standing on the Upper West Side doing absolutely nothing. That's the same group.
Yeah. The tens of millions of people who voted for President Trump left no ambiguity about the mandate he had on these issues. And they may not like every way ICE operates, but the macro mission to do what is necessary to not just control the border and not just remove certain people from the United States, but to send the message that you cannot come to this country illegally and expect to be treated like a citizen. That's what's happening. Now, are things happening that are in error or in excess or that aren't to the liking of a Democratic mayor or governor? They are. And that's being fought out on the streets of the United States. And, the hard cases are when some American citizen gets caught up or some grandma who's been sewing clothes in a community for 30 years gets caught up. But if people are here illegally, then the law says they need to go. And in some cases, they're being told to go. If a citizen is caught up, the government should do its best to make amends and to figure out how to keep that from happening. But this isn't some rogue operation that's disconnected from democracy. This is what people who voted for the president, in the main, one of the main things that they wanted to see him do. And that's what's happening.
Circling back, you can be pardoned by the president under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It happened under Biden via the U.S. Probation Office. The president can pardon somebody under the for federal offenses, including those obtained in U.S. district courts, the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, and military courts martial. Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, I stand corrected.
Yeah, no worries. They can be pardoned by Trump, and they will be. So they're not really facing any actual legal jeopardy, at least not under this administration. And given what we saw at the end of Biden, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw just a blanket from Trump on his way out that he pardons all the military officers for any crimes, any alleged crimes in connection with the Venezuelan drug boat raids, so that they don't have to worry, and they shouldn't have to worry. This should not be a distraction for them. They already have to put their lives on the line every day, their actual safety. They shouldn't have to worry about this BS too. All right, forging forward. Let's talk about what's happening in Minnesota, because we spent the first 42 minutes talking about some not great things for Republicans with which they are going to have to deal. But they do have something happening on Team Blue that is an outrage, and that gets right to the heart, I think, of why most Republicans cannot stand Democrat rule. This excessive government purse that is filled with other people's money, none of which anyone can afford, that is then doled out to favored interest groups. And then even when fraud is detected, the purse is not closed. Instead, it's refilled with more of your money and mine to fund, in this case, Somali immigrants who are buying luxury cars, fancy jewelry, nice homes and clothes, and in some cases funneling money back to Somalia to pay for a terrorist group, Al-Shabaab, and all under the, open eyes of Minnesota lawmakers who, reports City Journal and the New York Times in a pair of reports, knew. They knew they were being defrauded, but didn't want to say anything because they were worried about being called racist, Mark.
You know, the parallel is to this horrible thing that's happened in the UK with immigrants molesting children. And government officials say the same thing. Well, we didn't do anything because we didn't want to appear to be racist or prejudiced. This story is so outrageous that the New York Times wrote one of the most fair anti-democratic stories that I've ever read in the paper about what's happened. And as you said, all these charities, all these government programs, government-funded programs, in many cases, government funding private groups, some coming out of COVID, they just created fraudulent schemes, fake patients, fake students, young people with diseases and afflictions. And they just basically said, we help these 100 kids, so give us all the money that we should get from the government. And as you said, they would the Democrats would see the cookie jar being robbed, and then they put more cookies back in the same jar and then turn their backs again. This is a massive scandal, and the scale, it's not just kind of symbolic. The scale of it is like $1 billion in Minnesota alone for the fraud in these programs. As you said, most of the people who've been charged by the U.S. attorney are from the Somali community. Now, many of them are American citizens, either born here or naturalized. But as you said, many also have ties back to Somalia. And the Democrats don't really have an explanation for how this happened, except to say, as you did, well, we didn't want to appear racist. We didn't want to appear prejudiced. This is an important community in our state. Massive ripoff of the taxpayers, massive. And a massive repudiation of the notion that you can just hand out government money and hope for the best that people aren't going to commit fraud.
Oh, I don't even know if it was a hope for the best situation. I watched this one guy who's part of the Democratic lawmaking crew. I think he's a Republican, but he's part of the State House in Minnesota over the weekend. And he was like, they all knew. Everyone knew. We've all been jumping up and down about this for years. They just didn't care. They just decided it was in their interest group to funnel the money to this interest group that paid for them. All these Somali immigrants are voting Democrat. And he was saying it doesn't make any sense because if you look at their values on paper, they sound more like Republicans. Culturally, the Somali crew is not exactly far left. They like school choice, he said, is their number one most important issue. So why are they voting Democrat? Because of this. Because they're giving them cash giveaways. Here's a tweet put out by the Minnesota Department of Homeland Security. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's long. Hold on, actually, I have it here. Okay. Again, just a couple highlights. Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud. But no, we got the opposite response. He systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Instead of partnership, we got the full weight of retaliation by him. It's scary, isolating, and left us wondering who we can turn to. This is a cascade of systemic failures leading up to Tim Walz. Then they go on, there's a little bit more. Fundamentally, Tim Walz is dishonest, lacks ethics and integrity, has poor leadership abilities, and has never taken accountability for his role in fraud. Instead, he deflects by blaming national politics for his own failings. That's exactly right. As far as I can see, and they thank the New York Times for bringing the plight of Minnesota to the national stage. I have to say, Mark, I think Tim Walz is done. I think this will bring him down. He's running for a third term. I think it's over for him. What do you think?
Well, the current speaker, Republican speaker, is going to probably be the Republican nominee, I think, and whoever their nominee is, I think it's hard to win a third term, and this story is going to continue to reverberate around the state. It is more of a blue state than a purple state, though. So for whatever reasons he got elected twice, maybe he can win again. But certainly he's imperiled. And certainly the threads on this are going to continue to be pulled. But I'm not ready to predict he's going to lose. But he's obviously now in a very tough political position. When the New York Times does a very long, big story calling into question your competence and maybe your ideology, it's a sign of trouble for sure.
What did you make of the City Journal report followed a few days later by the New York Times report? I was like, first of all, go City Journal. But what do you think the New York Times been working on this and got scooped?
Good question.
Or they hustled to get, because a lot of these facts have been out there.
It's a good question. The timing obviously probably not coincidence because they're so close together. The question of the money being used to go overseas to fund criminal activity, I still want to see more documentation on that. It's certainly suggestive, but I'd like to see more because it's obviously a huge charge and a potentially massive story.
Well, I tip my hat to the good folks of City Journal who are ahead of a lot of the mainstream news reporting, and that is a publication well worth your time, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Halperin stays with us. We will be right back, and there's a lot more news to get to. Stand by. Ever read the label on a typical bag of chips? It's often a science experiment of seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, and mystery ingredients. Masa is part of the growing movement to bring back real food. Masa chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. Not only do these chips avoid the bad stuff, they also taste delicious too. Snacking on Masa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash and no bloat. And if you love Masa, then you will love Vandy crisps. Vandy, which is Masa's sister company, makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips, too. Ready to give Masa or Vandy a try? Use code MK for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this delicious offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Masa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick a couple of bags up before they're all gone. Mark Halperin is back with me. He is the host of Next Up with Mark Halperin on MK Media. Go and subscribe. Get it on YouTube, youtube.com/AT Next Up. Not AT, at. I feel like Ron Burgundy. You got to do the at is what he's trying to tell me in this prompter. It's youtube.com/at, like the at sign, Next Up Halperin. Okay. I don't know why they did that, Mark Halperin, but it's annoying.
Can I tell you the best story about that I heard the other day? It's about someone we both know, but I'm not going to say who it is. When this person was reading prompter, and it was a story about the Hague, and this person was reading the prompter and said, the Hagu, they said.
Oh,
the
no.
Hagu. Yeah.
No.
The Hagu. Makes me laugh every time.
Abby hates when I tell this story, but I have to tell it because she's so fun. Abby's very smart, but she has this weird thing with pronunciations that she does. She's laughing. She has like a mental block on certain pronunciations and certain words. And one time, Mark Siegel was sitting on the set with me at Fox, and he had like updated his thoughts. I don't know what she was bringing me, but she was bringing me something about the segment that we were doing, and what it said, what it was about was, reverse. She had to transcribe something, a medical presser that had just happened, and give it to me while I was interviewing Mark Siegel. And the document she brought out that she had typed up said, they said she suffered a grandma seizure.
That's, if you're going to have a Caesar, it's one of the best ones to have.
Totally.
But it's that's a good
so
one.
much better than like the mean uncle seizure.
Or the meat kin down the block seizure. There's all sorts of bad ones, but the grandma one, that's awesome. I love that.
No, it's like, it's kind of nice to you and gives you a bunch of candy at the end.
Pinches your cheeks. Take some saliva.
Speaking of grandparents. Back to Tim Walz, because we can't leave that story without me showing the following war between, I'll get into this in one second, between Trump and Walz. But here's Walz trying to do damage control on this on Meet the Press. I don't think he understands what that term means. Here he is with Kristen Welker, SOT 19.
Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Certainly, I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
I see. So they're so well run that the criminals were attracted to Minnesota. And it's not all Somalis. It's literally hundreds of Somalis, except for the 8 who are non-Somali. So don't generalize, Mark. He, too, has gotten the research paper on don't alienate the Somalis. They're still voting for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's very reminiscent of how he handled controversies during his vice presidential campaign, which is he's got some stuff to say and he hopes the parade moves on before anybody asks a follow-up question. I did a little checking during the break. Minnesota used to have 2-year terms for governor. They don't anymore. 4-year terms, no term limits, but no one's ever won a third term. No one has ever successfully been a third term 4-year governor. And I think he might not break the streak after that answer. If
they vote for him, they deserve what they're getting at this point. But so here was a little war of words between Trump and President Trump and Governor Walz. Which is the opening shot? It's actually the opening shot was in a Truth Social in which President Trump called Tim Walz retarded. He used the word, quote, retarded. And then Tim Walz responded to that again on Meet the Press. I think it's SOT 20.
Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful. This is cruelness. This is meanness. It's aimed at a broader community. And as far as demonizing our Somali community, maybe he could help us on some things. Demonizing an entire community, folks who are in the professions, educators, artists, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, they bring the diversity and the energy to a place like Minnesota. And for him to just randomly decide to do this, it makes no sense. Do your job. Get the criminals out. Secure our border. But do it with dignity and respect to the American tradition of respecting immigrants and refugees as a beacon of hope.
Okay, Trump shutting down immigration from third world countries was not done randomly. It was done in the wake of this reporting and the shooting of these 2 National Guardsmen by an Afghani national over the weekend. It wasn't random. But let me just give you the last piece of the story, which is Trump then responding to that chastising from Tim Walz on Air Force One Sunday night. SOT 2.
You called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think
you have a problem with it? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia, there's something wrong with Walz.
Okay, so Trump's defense is he actually is slow. He's not even taking on the issue that term is offensive to some. He's like, but it's real. I'm telling you, he's slow. Which is
anyone who
classic Trump.
I was going to say anyone who spent any time with Donald Trump is zero surprised at that response.
He's not sorry, no. Mark. You're shocked?
No. He's not even sorry, not sorry. He's just not sorry.
Oh no, not sorry. And I have to say, I've been thinking about that word because a lot of people are starting to use that word again. I don't mean to be too philosophical about it, but I do think it's one of those it's a message word. It's not really like anybody wants to make fun of people who are slow when it comes to brain development. It's that they're sick and tired of being told what they can and cannot say. That term was used for decades, without it. No one's trying to actually say something negative about that community. They're trying to say something about the person they're targeting, that they're kind of slow. And this is a way of saying we're done being word policed. I think that's why Trump says it too.
Yeah, and also it's a word that he grew up using, I'm sure, because when he was a kid, that was a word people used. So, again, I'm not surprised by it. I'm always against word policing, just as a general matter. So,
Yeah, and it never works with Donald Trump. I can speak to that firsthand.
Yeah.
Just don't go there. He's not going to be moved by you.
No matter how good your research is,
one of the things we love about
no matter how good your research is, no matter how high profile the debate moment, he will not be moved by the word police.
That's right. But this wound up being a great strength of his as things turned out. Okay, speaking of the National Guard soldiers who were shot, that tweet that Trump sent out, or Truth Social, in the wake of this tragedy, these two poor young National Guardsmen, 120, 124, the 20-year-old now dead, the 24-year-old still fighting for his life. I don't know. It doesn't sound good, Mark. No. The perpetrator shot and expected to make it, shot by a third National Guardsman. But now Trump sends out this Truth Social, which is just, it is a barn burner. And I have to say, it may be, in the view of many Americans, the best thing he's done since becoming president for the second time. I'm going to read just a couple highlights, very long, but here are the highlights. He's talking about how he's going to get rid of these migrants and asylum seekers. And he says, a migrant earning 30 grand with a green card will get roughly 50 grand in yearly benefits for their family. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey, as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing. And on we go. Then he says, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the U.S. or who's incapable of loving our country. I will end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. I don't know whether any of that or all of it is true, but I think most Republicans would say, shoot it into my veins. That's exactly what I voted for.
Yeah, and not just only Republicans, some independents, some Democrats. That's been Donald Trump's core message for a while, and very informed by the experience with Europe. Europe is dealing with all of these problems, in some ways more severe than what the United States has dealt with. Whatever laws might be broken by what the president's suggesting, whatever traditions, whatever norms, whatever downsides there are, the coalition that elected him president 2 out of 3 times is well on board with that philosophy about what America needs to do to be safe and prosperous. So there are tens of millions who don't like what the president wrote, but there are tens of millions who do. And again, no one should be surprised that that's his reaction to what occurred.
And we talked about the Gallup poll earlier, which had an overall not great approval number for Trump. But one of the areas in which he's still very much holding on is immigration. So you tell me whether this retort to that Truth Social by Mark Kelly, who's one of the so-called seditious six in connection with that Pete Hegseth story we covered earlier, but also has decided to weigh in on this whole thing with the National Guardsmen as well. Tell me whether this is effective, given those poll numbers. SOT 9.
This is kind of more of the same from this president. When he says things like third world countries, what is he really saying? I think what he's saying is he doesn't want brown people in our country.
Mark?
If he wants to get the squad's endorsement for president, it could be effective.
Is that what that is?
It's more than that. It's the belief of the Democratic Party about Donald Trump. They believe he's motivated by racism. It's what they think about Stephen Miller too. They think they're bigots who want America to be an all-white country, when that's not what they want. But Mark Kelly is enunciating the view of Blue America about President Trump's view on immigration.
This is just honestly, it's so tired. It's so worn. It doesn't work. It's like, okay, you can keep trying to, use those plays out of the old playbook, but you use them to try to get a woman elected president, and it failed. What would make you think it's going to work better now on an issue that Trump, notwithstanding his overall sagging numbers, still has huge support on? So, okay, I guess that's what they're going to do. There's more of that coming, you'll be shocked, from Jasmine Crockett on MS Now. Here's SOT 10.
And the idea that one person can get out of line and commit such a horrific crime as shooting two National Guardsmen that never, ever asked to be here. In fact, we know the young lady that lost her life, specifically, we're saying that this is a waste of time, but now you want to go against every single immigrant. That doesn't make sense. And it's frankly not who we are, because if that's the case, let's talk about the white supremacists and how many of them need to be kicked out of this country, because I can guarantee you I can track down more crimes that they've committed, because overall immigrants have a lower crime committal rate than white supremacists. But we don't want to talk about that in this country.
Overall, I love that. Overall, yes, because there are indeed still more Americans in America than there are immigrants, madam. But once again, playing the race card there, and a bunch of disinformation as she does it. Trump prioritizing deporting migrants instead of white supremacists. Your thoughts on her?
Well, I have to confess, in the last 3 weeks, Representative Crockett has become a guilty pleasure for me. I love watching her on TV and watching how her mind works as it connects to her mouth. I really do. It's just something mesmerizing about how she takes questions and spins them back with it's not word salad, it's like word pad thai. There's a lot of complexities. There's different flavors, textures, all in there. So it's hard for me to analyze what she says, because I watch her like this. For those listening on the podcast version, I dropped my mouth in slack-jawed disbelief. I mean, it's incredible the things she says, and she's still thinking of running for statewide office, which I would look forward to.
And by the way, that reference she made to the National Guards woman who was killed, thinking it was pointless or a waste of time to be doing this in D.C. is way, way out of context, and shame on her for doing that to a newly fallen soldier. What the woman said, Sarah, was that it's pointless if they're not going to let us actually do law enforcement. She wanted to have the reins taken off of her and the other National Guardsmen. She wanted to do more law enforcement. She was upset over, these constant crackdowns on them, not to be able to do anything to actually help the city of D.C. So that's a Democrat problem, Jasmine Crockett. That's not a complaint that she was there in the first place. It was a request for people like you to try to take the reins off so that the National Guard can do what they're capable of doing. But who would expect media honesty from her? Okay, you mentioned Stephen Miller, and he's kind of in the news today because of his wife, Katie Miller, who went on CNN and had a very interesting exchange with Abby Phillip, who tries to act like she's just totally benign, just totally neutral. It's just the facts that make her always come down on the side of the Democrats. It's not her bias. It's just the facts. She can't be in charge of the fact that all the facts run in favor of Democrats. That's just how it goes. So they had an exchange on her show, and I'll just let it play out. You'll get it. This is Friday night, SOT 26.
Wait, you have Jennifer Welch on your show very often, and you've never pushed back as she has called my husband a white nationalist.
Hold on.
That is no
Katie.
different than Nick Fuentes going on Tucker Carlson's show. It's not, and you should admit it.
Well, hold on. Wait, hold on. How is it anything similar? It's not remotely similar at all. Nick Fuentes sits around and says that he likes Hitler. How is that
what does
similar
Katie have to do with it? What does she have to do with it? She has nothing to do with it. Literally nothing.
Scott, Katie is the person who just said to me that it is comparable to say that Nick Fuentes, who is literally a neo-Nazi, is the same as somebody, a liberal, who has an opinion, who is not a neo-Nazi. They are not
a hateful opinion.
The same.
How do you want? Excuse me. Let's go back to this point one more time.
But
Nick
Katie,
Fuentes can espouse an opinion on Tucker Carlson's show.
It is not
and
the same.
he didn't push back the same way you didn't push back when someone called someone in my family a Nazi.
Hold on a second.
It's not different.
Hold on a second.
It's not.
If someone comes on this show and says, I love Hitler and I admire what he did, they would never, first of all, I would never invite them on the show and they would never be invited back. So those two things are not the same.
But yet you've gone on Jennifer Welch's podcast. It's the same thing.
Okay, so Jennifer Welch came up. I think I said that's Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, but also she was on Doge. She's an independent professional in her own right and a podcast host. That Jennifer Welch who I'm just now getting to see in these podcast clips, who is possibly the most hateful person in the national dialogue today. It's like tough to say, but even Joy Reid is more joyful than this woman. She's truly deeply, deeply hateful of everybody on Team Red. Here's just a sampling of this person who Abby Phillip is totally fine with, has on her show repeatedly, went on this woman's show herself, Abby Phillip did. Not hateful. See, Stephen Miller, hateful. Jennifer Welch, not hateful. That's Abby Phillip's world. Here, watch.
Shockingly, the conservatives that I thought were just crusty old white people have morphed into this young group of misogynists.
And I can tell you, when I'm around white people, they test the racist water. They test it on people like you all.
Stephen Miller is a Nazi and he is a sociopath. He is a little insecure white supremacist. This guy was bullied in high school, and he's unattractive, and he's 4'10", and nobody fucking likes him. You get to J.D. Vance, who is a failed drag queen, because little Moses Mike Grinder Johnson worships two things: Donald Trump and his closeted life. For this dementia-ridden, diaper-wearing sack of shit, he started off his 60 Minutes interview by saying, "I am not a Nazi." Okay? He clearly is a Nazi.
People that triple Trump should be banned, boycotted from enjoying the best thing that America has to offer, which is multiculturalism. Get your fat asses out of the Mexican restaurant. Get your fat asses over to Cracker Barrel, because nobody wants to see your fucking smug ass, teeny weeny, pink arm, big gut around. Nobody wants to see that shit. No one.
You got it? Not hateful. It's fine. Abby Phillip can that's just a liberal with an opinion. That's how she described her. Stephen Miller, with his immigration crackdown, supported by the vast majority of Americans, hateful. Clearly, Abby Phillip has no problem with him being called a white supremacist or a Nazi, because she was actually on Jennifer Welch's show when Jennifer said that directly to Abby Phillip. Fine. Your thoughts?
I just think the left has to play by the same rules as they want the right to play by, and if they want to be the police of who can speak on the national town square, then they need to recognize that they've got policing to do in their backyard as well. And right now that's just not how they feel, and they should, because they should either let everybody speak or they should police their own side.
But here's what's happening there. I mean, you're being polite, but Abby Phillip finds absolutely nothing wrong with what that woman said. I guarantee you she agrees with all of it. Yeah. She's a fan of this Welsh person. And so she wants her to come on her show, I think 4 times we counted. She said yes to going on this person's show. Then this woman, do we have the soundbite, you guys? I don't know where we are, but like in the SOT lineup. But she went on her show, and the woman said it directly to her. Here's that. Listen to this. There was no pushback. Here's what Abby Phillip tried to just sort of say. Oh, gee, I don't know what's in his head. Gee, could be white supremacist. Who can know? Watch.
Stephen Miller is a white supremacist. I mean, he is, and he's basically running the White House. They keep Trump busy with his decorating projects. He's got building the arch now. He's got his Oval Office design. And then you have these real sociopaths that are real anti-Semites, true white supremacists like Stephen Miller. And even though he's Jewish, he's like a Nazi Jew.
Well, look, I can't speak to what Stephen Miller's motivations are.
You're such an asshole. I'm sorry, but Abby Phillip is a fucking asshole. She let her call him a Nazi Jew and just said, I'm sorry, but I can't speak to what his motivations are. What a cowardly dodge, just to try to maintain some semblance of objectivity. The only proper response to that is, come on, hold it. We can criticize his immigration policy all day long if you want. Don't call him a Nazi Jew. That's disgusting.
Well, she calls balls and strikes. She's never seen a Democrat throw anything but a strike.
She's going to have her glasses readjusted really soon. But this is the mainstream of CNN, Mark. Yeah. This is the reinvented, more mainstream, moderate CNN. That's truly one of the faces of it.
If Paramount buys them and Ellison, enacts his vision, I'd be surprised if she's still in that job.
Good. Get her, Ellison. Go, Barry. You can do some crossover programming. They're going to need your help. Get her. Get rid of her. And by the way, she will fail in the independent lane because she has no personality. She has a lot of bias and no personality. It's a bad combo, actually, but perfect.
She's making our
CNN.
friend Scott Jennings rich.
Well, that's good. We're in favor of that. But he can go on some other loser show at CNN for that when she gets fired. Something else happened on regular TV, CNN, with Abby Phillip. That actually is kind of interesting. And that is the son of Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas went on. And reportedly, as Maureen would say, reportedly, allegedly, did not do that well, to the point where, hold on, I'm just going to give you the headline before we play it. The parents are said to be so furious with CNN that they intend to blacklist the entire network moving forward. Now you're having Scott Jennings weigh in on this and others as well. This is from a debate that happened on November 10th, but is only now causing
Can I ask you a question?
The response.
Before you play it?
can.
Because I skimmed the New York Post story. What does their son do for a living? Like, why was he on CNN?
It's funny you should ask. He is host of SiriusXM's Young Americans with Dylan Douglas and a 2022 graduate of Brown University, which is pretty much all we need to know.
Was going to guess
him.
Wesleyan, but okay.
His Gen Z political show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. Must have missed it. What were you going to say,
I said
Mark?
I would have guessed Wesleyan, but Brown's okay.
Brown. I mean, it literally, there's no school in the nation to which I would less want to, I would, there's no school worse than Brown when it comes to Woketopia. They're number one. They're worse than Columbia. They're number one.
Oberlin is number one.
No, what's worse about Oberlin? I know they're terrible. They
you know the story?
They've been ensconced in scandal. But truly, I think Brown is an outpost for Hamas. I think that's almost literally true. Almost. But they're so bad.
Oberlin's bad. Oberlin's really bad.
Come on. Yeah. Oberlin is not, like, if you...
Let's go undercover.
People say, like...
Let's go undercover. Could we post... You think we could both pass for college students? Let's go undercover.
Here's what I'd like to do. Go undercover as a Jewish American and go to Brown University. And, like, if I were a man, I'd wear the yarmulke. I'd do, like, something to make it obvious, because they are breeding anti-Semites, in my opinion, at Brown University. It's disgusting. It's worse than any place.
All right, let's do this. Let's get a makeup artist who can turn you into an Orthodox Jewish man, and I'll get a camera.
I think we just have to take off the makeup and then wear, like, the right hair.
Let's go to Brown, and we'll go to the Hillel, and then you'll walk out, and we'll just shoot the whole thing and see what happens.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll be lucky if I make it across campus, because that university is disgusting. In any event, back to Mr. Douglas, Dylan, that is, who's the dual Nepo baby. And this is look at this. This is reportedly what has his parents so irate over his, quote, humiliation, allegedly at the hands of CNN, that they're going to boycott the network. Here.
Like, you cannot put on the American people that Democrats were the one that were hurting people, making this plight.
Who was casting the votes against opening the government? Democrats or Republicans?
Who was
casting the votes?
Scott, who was wanting to cut SNAP benefits?
Nobody.
Republicans
voted to fund
SNAP benefits after 2 courts ruled that it was unallowed.
Republicans voted to fund SNAP 15 times. Democrats voted to defund it 15 times. We had to get 8 to join us.
You talk about the Affordable Health Care Act. Okay.
It's terrible.
Landmark legislation is not perfect. We understand that. Democrats, Republicans, independents, 70% of Americans, not Democrats, not just independents, 70% of Americans believe that they should increase those subsidies past the dead mark of December, the COVID era subsidy benefits. So it's a huge, huge thing that Democrats, Republicans, 70% agree with. And look, when it comes to the government shutdown, I was of the persuasion that to go for it, I didn't really get it. Democrats wanted a fight. They got a fight. Chuck Schumer, back in last year, didn't fight. He got a lot of flack for it, particularly in his home state of New York. So they wanted a fight, but they found a fight that was worth fighting with talking about the Affordable Health Care Act. People were with them. Democrats were leading in the polls. We won big on Tuesday.
That's what it was for, right? It was for the election, right?
Well, I think we should have kept going. What I don't understand, and which I would love others to help me out understand, I don't understand why we caved so soon when the American people seemed to be on our
Because the
side.
election ended. You just said it. It was for the election.
Listen,
the election ended. Then you caved.
That's it?
Seemed like normal, like whatever. I'm booking him on Next Up, by the way. Right now.
Are you?
Now.
You should.
Right
Will
now.
you do
I'm
it?
trying right now. As we speak, I'm using my hand off camera to text the booker and say, I want that kid.
I actually would listen to that.
Yeah.
Let's see if he does any better with you. He didn't do well. I mean, that's clear. He wasn't substantive, and he didn't have his talking points lined up, never mind actual substance. But did anyone expect any different? Like, why did they think their 22-year-old son would go on to CNN across from the Scott Jennings of the world and do well? Why did they think that?
I mean, I don't know. For a liberal in a CNN pundit slot, I didn't think he was so bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but I didn't feel like he was.
I mean, with those qualifiers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
I could name names, but I mean, I thought whatever, like grading on the normal curve. I don't know. If I were his parents, maybe they didn't like the part in his hair. I would redo the hair. Did he have a center part? Did he have a center part?
Exposes something. No, it never works. Not on a man. Yeah. I have a center part. It's good on it. But it doesn't work.
But am I right that he had a center part?
Can we roll the tape again? I need to see it now.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he had a center part.
Stand by.
No, it requires investigation. It's important.
I agree.
That Democrats were the one that were hurting people, making this plight.
Who was casting the votes against opening the government?
It's pretty
Democrats or
Republicans?
Century
and it's indistinct.
Who was casting the votes?
Scott, who's one of the snap in?
So if my son said, I'm going up against Scott Jennings and I'm going to have a center part, I'd say no. Let's pick a side. Let's
First of all, right, show up like a man with a real opinion and a real part. But I think this espouses like so much about Hollywood. I think those two are used to everybody genuflecting when they walk by, never mind their offspring with the dual royalty of Hollywood legends, at least Michael Douglas aside. But Catherine Zeta-Jones is no slouch in her own right when it comes to Hollywood fame, success, and movies and so on. And they're horrified. They don't understand what it's like to be in our lane.
Yeah, totally agree.
I mean, honestly, it's
totally agree.
Right? They don't, like, it's a day ending in Y to have multiple negative stories written about you that are not true, to have people say the most vile things. This guy had mild pushback by Scott Jennings in a segment for which he was not prepared. Who cares? Like, look what happened with Katie Miller the other day. Like, they should not allow their 22-year-old son to be out there if their skin is this thin.
And I'll say, in my dealing with Hollywood people around politics and, and public policy, they're pretty thin-skinned. They just want to be told they're right. So I'm not surprised that they thought their precious little bundle was overwhelmed in the rough and tumble of a CNN set with Scott Jennings.
Well, while we're on the university set, Brown, Oberlin, and Dylan Douglas, let's take a march across the pond, I guess a sail across the pond, to see what's happening with the now ex-elected president of the Oxford Union. This guy, George Aberonier, got elected to be the head of the president of the Oxford Union, the debate club, which is historic and has been around for a long, long time. And months earlier, before Charlie Kirk's death, he debated Charlie. And Charlie crushed him. It was beautiful. Charlie, this guy who never graduated college, never went to college, up against this Oxford kid who was the, now elected head of the debate society. And Charlie swept the floor with him. It was great. And right after Charlie was shot, and as you know, we were on the air together, it was clear right from the moment that first, not even the most terrible video hit, but the first video hit, that this was obviously a very severe situation and life-threatening at a minimum. And instead of recognizing that, this guy, George Aberonier, who had debated in a gentlemanly fashion against Charlie didn't, throw shots under the belt or anything like that, celebrated it. We have it? I thought it was just a tweet. Tweeting out something like, it's wild, wow, LOL, that Charlie got shot. And now he decided to sit down with the British outlet LBC and tried to justify his disgusting tweets, again, which were totally insensitive, to Charlie, to his then wife, now widow Erica, to his children, to the community that loved Charlie and supported him, who he knew was suffering when he did all this, but had absolutely no compunctions about doing it anyway. And now here he is trying to explain why he sent out the repeated tweets.
A stupid and kind of silly thing for me to say. I reacted to kind of a notification and the headline. I had no real context for, what happened. I didn't really understand the severity of the situation. I reacted poorly, and then upon kind of realizing just how serious kind of these things were, I kind of deleted everything. I posted on my social media kind of apologizing.
Because there'll be some people listening saying, well, did you really need to know how severe the situation was? I mean, you knew a guy who you'd met had got shot.
Of course, and I think it's a valid position. I think.
Why did you?
I think part of Mr. Kirk's comments don't exist in a vacuum, He was an incredibly kind of polarizing figure, and I think it's almost a symptom of him, and my reaction, a symptom of kind of how we have discourse online in which, it's oftentimes very reactive. It's oftentimes about saying something almost inflammatory, almost because I wanted to spark a conversation about kind of what happened, the fact that, oh my God, this is such a major event that's just taken place. And
you wanted to get a reaction.
Exactly, I wanted to get a reaction. I wanted to have a conversation, and
a laugh.
Almost exactly, like a laugh and a bit of a reaction. And kind of, I realized afterwards that, that wasn't the right way to go about it.
Oh my God, Mark, the original tweets are, Charlie Kirk got shot, let's fucking go. He posted on WhatsApp shortly after the shooting. Charlie Kirk got shot, LOOOL, he added on Instagram. It was repeated. This is not, there was a melee at the Charlie Kirk event. There was a gun that went off. He knew Charlie got shot. And now this idiot interviewer lets him get away with, I didn't realize how serious it was. And the fact that this guy's even still, I think he's still at Oxford. He did eventually get a vote of no confidence to be president of the Debate Society for this year. But he's at Oxford right now and given a total pass for those comments.
I mean, the original behavior on social media is just so abhorrent. But to then decide to sit for an interview where the ostensible premise is to explain what you did and to come so ill-prepared and to make the whole thing just worse and more grotesque, I find it to be one of the saddest things. And of course, the premise of his defense is that Charlie was some evil, polarizing monster, which, in the months since he's died, the left and the media has had all this time to produce evidence that Charlie was a bigoted, hateful person. And of course they haven't, because he wasn't, and they can't. And yet that's what he brings to the table as his defense. Well, I could say these things because Charlie was such a hateful person. Just makes me sick.
It's disgusting. So this was LBC is leading Britain's conversation with Lewis Goodall. Lewis, you failed. That was a disgusting display. That was a pathetic attempt at actually holding him to account for what he, in fact, wrote in those two posts. And I didn't realize how serious it was when the tweets themselves say Charlie got shot. Fuck you, Lewis. You fell down on the job and you humiliated yourself. Humiliated yourself against a true villain, too, which makes it especially egregious. Stand by. Mark Halperin returns after this quick break. I've been talking a lot about Riverbend Ranch because I love their steaks. Well, this holiday season, express your love with a very special gift of premium steaks from Riverbend Ranch. They have spectacular beef bundles that are wonderful gifts to friends and family. Their prime rib roast and holiday bundles are only available while supplies last, and they're going fast. For the last 35 years, Riverbend Ranch has been creating an elite Angus herd by using ultrasound technology to identify genetically superior cattle with a focus on flavor and tenderness. All Riverbend Ranch cattle are born and raised in the USA. They never use growth hormones or antibiotics, and the beef is processed right at the ranch in their award-winning USDA-inspected processing facility. Avoid the costly middlemen because the beef is sent directly from Riverbend Ranch to your home. This is not your average black Angus beef. Order from riverbendranch.com. Use the promo code Megyn for $20 off your first order, and let me know what you think. riverbendranch.com, promo code Megyn. We talk a lot about personal responsibility on this show. Well, here's one aspect that's really important, your health. And I'm not talking about following whatever the experts recommend. I'm talking about real data-driven decisions based on your body's actual numbers. We demand transparency in government, but most of us have no idea what's happening inside of our own bodies, never mind inside of D.C. Disease can develop silently for years before symptoms appear. By then, you're playing catch-up with expensive treatments instead of preventing problems when they're cheap and easy to fix. Well, I want to tell you about Gevity. They are revolutionizing preventative care with something radically different. 100-plus blood markers tested at your home. Personalized supplement packs shipped directly to you based on your deficiencies. Biannual retesting to track progress, plus ongoing virtual consultations on your schedule. This is healthcare independence. And you get 20% off at gogevity.com/Megyn with code Megyn when you check out. That's gogeviti.com/Megyn, because no one should control your health decisions but you. Tomorrow is Election Day, not in very many places, but in some places, including in Tennessee, where there is a U.S. House seat up for grabs right now. The Republican who held the district has retired to go be part of the private sector, but was apparently facing some sort of a scandal anyway, so he's out. And now this Afton Bain, who's a Democrat, she's currently serving in the Tennessee State House as a representative, is running for now to be a member of the U.S. Congress against a Republican who would seem to be a shoo-in. I think this district went, 30 points or something like that, overwhelmingly to the Republican last time around. The Democrats now say it would be like a victory if they could get it to, within 10 points, this race. But this woman who they are running is an apparent lunatic. We covered her on AM Update last week before we went on vacay. But here she is, we didn't get to this soundbite, outside of the Tennessee State House, where she was trying to make some sort of a point, but looked much more like our children when they were toddlers. Here it is. She's trying to barge into the, I think it's the Speaker's office. Sorry, the governor's. That's her screaming.
Are you okay? Sir, that was completely unnecessary.
Then the video goes on for another 2 minutes with her just sitting on the floor moaning, just rocking and moaning like a drama queen, like you're trying to play it up for the cameras. And now this woman who says she can't stand Nashville, she hates is running for a Congress position that would represent Nashville among other areas in Tennessee. And you tell me whether the Democrats have any shot at actually winning or coming within their alleged goal of keeping the race relatively tight.
Well, you never know for sure. It's hard to poll special elections. She's unlikely to win, and largely because of the makeup of the district, very pro-Trump. But she will outperform Kamala Harris in the district. And so assuming she's not going to win, I don't think it matters that she's going, how close she comes. I think what matters is why is she coming close? Because as that clip and many others I've seen suggest, I haven't had a chance to go out there and watch for myself, she's not a very good candidate. Sometimes, you can overperform in a district if you're a Democrat in a Republican district because you're awesome. She's not, although her media is pretty good. Her paid ads are pretty good. So I think that the issue here are the issues that are resonating in this race that are allowing a liberal Democrat to overperform in a very red district. Will those be the issues that resonate next year? And if you look at her campaign ads, particularly the last couple, they could be Donald Trump ads from 2024. All the issues she's talking about in terms of being anti-Washington, pro-change, worried about working class voters, they're all Trump rhetoric. Doesn't have the same solutions, but they're all Trump rhetoric. So I think the important thing is to see how close she comes as a measure of just how potent these set of issues might be for Democrats next year, because every Democrat's going to run on the same issues she's running
on. What I think is interesting about this person, and again, last week's AM Update, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, had a lot of sound bites from her. She's a nut. But what I think is interesting is, to me, this seems to be like a trend for Democrats. Like, I think they're leaning into crazy. They seem to like this. They seem to think, oh, she'll get attention. Like she's going to get clicks, like that crazy podcaster, Jennifer, Welch. This seems to work for them, they think, in like generating enthusiasm. So is that the future of the Democrat Party?
Well, I think some of her quote unquote crazy stuff maybe not helping her. and maybe not why they're attracted to her. I'll tell you what I do see, and I mentioned this before, the quality of her ads. She's very good on camera in controlled situations, like Mondami, right? Like Zoran Mondami. So I think they're looking for people who are good on social, good on video, who can, get attention, right? And she's gotten attention. The last ad, I think it's her last ad of the campaign, at the very closing shot, she winks at the camera. And it's very effective. Whether you like her or hate her or care about her politics, you can't help. She's very watchable. And I think you're seeing not just Democrats, but everybody in politics gravitating towards watchable. Because that's one thing that Donald Trump has as part of his success. You can't teach it, you can't package it. But if you find candidates who have it, it's a big advantage because you got to get people to pay attention. And Trump has shown the way in how to do that.
Well, that leads us back to your friend, Jasmine Crockett,
yes.
your girlfriend, who you can't take your eyes off of when she's on the camera, on the screen.
She's my guilty pleasure, not my girlfriend.
But I think you would say she's watchable.
Yeah,
but I mean, what of the fact that these two women are watchable for all the wrong reasons? As a woman, I have to tell you, I object. I object to their stupidity, to their drama. They're giving all of us a bad name.
Yeah, and they're giving, to some extent, they're giving, substantive politicians a bad name. But what's incredible about her is Mondami is consistently a pretty good performer. He had a bad second debate, but I've talked to people who've been on TV with her. She's not a good performer except in these controlled situations.
Crockett or this other gal in Tennessee?
Crockett, I don't know. I need more data. But this woman in Tennessee, she's good when she's packaged. And that's something, because a lot of politics can be packaged. I'm surrounded by people with divergent views on AOC and whether she'll be a strong presidential candidate. But there's no doubt that those who think she'll be a strong candidate if she runs see in her, just the attention economy, the capacity to get folks to listen to what she has to say. It's quite high with her, and that's something, because Governor Beshear ain't got that.
So what do you think, Mark? We started the show by talking about where Trump's polling is right now, that Gallup poll, and some of the problems that the Republican Party is facing at the moment. Yes, they have 12 months, just about 11 months, I guess, to work it out. I mean, if Trump can get some better economic numbers, and not just get the numbers, but actually make people feel like things have gotten better, is that all going to turn around? Like, what if he called you up tomorrow, Mark, and said, "What should I do?" What do you say?
I'd say talk to someone who knows. But then I'll tell you secretly on Megyn Kelly. I think the economy, which is, of course, it's a truism, it's always the biggest issue. But I think there's just a big gap now between how people feel about the economy and the better parts of the economy. And so I think I'm really, I don't want to waste December. I won't be sitting around doing nothing. But I'm really focused on State of the Union, because I think State of the Union is when he'll get massive audience, and he'll get a chance to say, here's my theory of the case. Here's what's worked so far. Here's what hasn't. And tariffs will be a big part of that. The relationship with China will be a big part of that. But so will all these questions about what is America's economy going to be? Are we going to be a manufacturing country? Are we going to be a big exporter? How are we going to make people feel better about their kids' economic future? And I don't think currently he's explaining that in a very linear way.
Mark, you're not going to believe this. My crack team just forwarded me a new Emerson College poll / The Hill. It has that Tennessee race within 2 points.
Yep.
It has the Republican up to Matt Van Epps and this crazy lady, Democrat Afton Bain, at 46. Small sample. Likely voters, though, which is good. Only 600 people surveyed, but my God.
That's a bit of an outlier, and even the Democrats don't have the race that close. But, I never predict special elections because the polling just can't capture who's going to turn out, right, on December 2nd, not normally a time people are, hyped up to go vote. But the district is such that she'll fall short. And as I said, people will make up all sorts of rules. If she's within 5, it means this, 10 means this, whatever. She's going to do substantially better than Kamala Harris. And Republicans had to spend a lot of money in this race.
What if she wins?
It'll be by the standards of like special elections. It'll be an earthquake if she wins, because the level of overperformance will be so dramatic, and Republicans will have spent money, right? You could say, well, we can fight this message by spending money. They spent a fortune to try to make sure they held the seat. And it makes Speaker Johnson's majority, virtually non-existent. So it'll be a massive deal if she wins, but I don't know anyone in the state who thinks she's going to.
I mean, if this is the standard, like my Strudwick is available. He's free. He's good looking.
Yeah.
He's starting to respond to commands, which the Democrats love.
Can he wink?
I don't like this woman is not the answer.
Can he wink? Not everybody can wink.
No, but he can crap and eat it.
See, there's a metaphor there that surmounts and surpasses all other metaphors.
This could work in politics. Yeah. This is actually a useful skill for any lawmaker headed to Washington.
Exactly.
Mark Halperin, thank you.
Thank you, Megyn.
Thanks
Good
for
to
helping
see
me on
you.
this under the
Happy
weather
holidays.
day. Appreciate it.
Ho.
You too. All right, we will be back tomorrow. It's an NR day, and we look forward to seeing you then.